Now, let's shift gears and tackle a challenge every brand faces in today's fast-moving digital world. Attention spans are shrinking, content is everywhere, and the window to connect with your audience is incredibly short. How can you make an impression that lasts when you have mere seconds to capture interest? How can brands cut through the noise and spark engagement that actually drives results? In selling the attention economy, why brands must capture interest in under 3 seconds. Our speakers will share proven strategies to grab attention, hold engagement, and turn fleeting movements into meaningful connections. You'll gain insights on leveraging creativity, technology, and audience understanding to make every second count. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause as we welcome our speakers to the stage. Grégory Mugnier, I'm so sorry if I'm saying that incorrect, the CEO of Axone Partners. We have Shamir Duverseau, I'm so sorry if I'm saying that incorrect as well, Managing Director of Smart Panda Labs. And we have Abhay Chopra, Creative Strategist and Product Designer at the Abhay Chopra Design Studio. All right, let's welcome them to the stage. You're in.
Well, we're excited to get started with our Fireside chat today. We're looking forward to talking about the subject of cultivating interest in the market and taking advantage of the attention that people have today. We know that we definitely live in an economy where attention is a premium. The number of channels, all of them kind of striving for attention constantly, tugging at people, the number of devices that people are dealing with. So it's a challenge for different companies and organizations to be able to grab that attention from consumers and hold on to it enough to move them through that decision cycle and ultimately engage and become actual customers and then retain those customers over time. And we know how much that matters because that drives key metrics. It drives not only revenue, but profitability. It drives customer retention. It drives lifetime value. All those things that are so important. So I'm happy to have Grégory and Abhay with me today. Grégory, having a nice background in marketing and consumer psychology, a PhD, runs a global marketing agency that helps organizations do that, but also spends his time teaching in business schools and universities. And then Abhay's background in product design, running an agency that helps with AI-powered marketing and really helping companies develop MVPs to get up and running in 30 days to be able to drive that kind of value immediately from what they're doing and leveraging AI in their organizations. So to kind of jump into what we're doing, I'll ask questions to Grégory and Abhay today and get them to share their thoughts and insights with us. So first off, we'll start with you, Grégory. Yeah. Why can we say that attention has become the scarcest resource for companies today?
Yeah, first of all, I'm truly delighted to be with you today. It's a long flight for me from France, but I'm here with you. And I'm really glad to be with you today, with you guys. So, yeah, we can absolutely say that. Honestly, if we look at the last 10 years or maybe the last 20 years, the attention window is shrinking constantly and dramatically. A lot of studies in Europe, in America, show that the attention decrease. It's like the time spent in a piece of content now is like 5 seconds, no more. And we have a study in France, a really good study in consumer psychology, shows that now the lack of attention increased to 28% after 3 hours per day in front of a screen. So I don't know, I can ask, but how many of you are looking at a screen for more than 3 hours per day? Yeah, more. So yeah, the lack of attention increase for these guys. So, so I think the trend is clear. The attention window is getting smaller and smaller.
And same question to you, Abhay. What's your observations?
No, I think they are in a similar kind of cycle of what we said. But I also think that attention is kind of scarce because the supply has kind of exploded recently. While the demand remains the same, people have been able to create content really fast, especially using AI.
I'm not sure that we are.
There you go.
Hello.
Does it? Yeah.
turn on. No, you can create. No, you can just turn on. Oh. Dancing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Here we go.
Amazing. Okay, same technical problems everywhere, but that's fine. Okay, so I was talking about the same thing. I think what Gregory said, it's in the similar lines, but I also think that attention is something that have become scarce because the supply has kind of exploded in the recent years, while the demand remains the same. Especially AI creating a lot of slop content recently, people being able to create content really faster. But another thing which I have also noticed, especially working with a lot of different brands and founders, is that a lot of people focus on optimizing for creating content rather than focusing on the creative brief of the content. So I kind of have a line is like attention, while attention is scarce, but the more scare thing is the reason people are kind of not focusing on their attention. So.
It's interesting because we talk about attention and we talk about that very broadly as if everyone's the same, right? We talk about numbers, we talk about averages, but we know when we talk about attention, different generations, different audiences, different mindsets, all those things dramatically impact how attention is given. And even the platforms, the nature of the audience on certain platforms really varies a great deal. I'm wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, how different platforms kind of impact how people are and aren't giving attention.
For sure. I think so I personally have helped a lot of brands and founders, and personally have created a lot of content around, especially 3 major platforms that are out there in the world. Is like on the video production side, is like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I've seen, from attention point of view, whatever works on TikTok doesn't work on Instagram, and whatever works on Instagram doesn't work on YouTube. Whatever works on YouTube doesn't work on anywhere else. And I think one of the things that I had noted down is like, it's kind of this, people want to create the same message, but there are 3 different ways of creating that message in all the 3 platforms. For example, on Instagram, it's very visual heavy of how do you grab the attention of people in the first 3-4 seconds. While compared to TikTok, it's about how do you give them a reason of relatability. And on YouTube, it's more about how do you engage with them in a long-term basis so that they are engaged in your story, they live your story from their perspective. So I think I've seen that phase going up and down in different platforms and also in different eras as kind of AI is coming up with different ways of we can create content faster and differently. So.
Yeah, so you can really see how kind of the 2 worlds kind of collide, right? Because it's a matter of what is it you're trying to say and what's the best medium, what's the best platform, what's the best way to communicate that in order to cultivate and grab someone's attention. But then you also have to align that and kind of fit the puzzle pieces with, well, who are you speaking to? How do they want to hear it? How do they want to absorb it? What platform are they on? And then how do you align those 2, right, to be able to ultimately have those puzzle pieces fit together and ultimately cultivate that interest and cultivate that attention and then hopefully hold that attention as a brand all the way through that customer journey and that customer process. Now, we say that as if it's just a matter of kind of doing the math or doing a calculation, but we also recognize it's not that simple because when all is said and done, we're dealing with people. We're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with the human brain, arguably the most complex machine in existence. And you really have to understand how people think and how people feel, how those interactions are taking place in order to truly be able to have an impact and grab that attention that we really want. So, Gregory, this is your field of study for sure. What's happening in the human brain as these brands are trying to cultivate this attention using the digital mediums?
We have to understand that attention is a cognitive resource. And like every cognitive resource is limited. I heard today several times that unlike AI, brain is limited. And I think it's true. Every scroll, every page viewed, every new stimulus consumes a small part of our available attention. And when it's gone, it's gone. We have to understand that our brain trying to preserve its energy, this cognitive resource. So in the few first seconds, the brand trying to filter out and remove what is not relevant for us, what is not dedicated to us, or what is not emotionally strong enough. We call that the subcortical processing. I don't know if my English is good, subcortical processing.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that's okay. I can do that in French. The subcortical processing is the ability of the brain to filter out in order to preserve the energy. So for me, it's a really critical issue for brands today because we are constantly overstimulated. We're in a world of stimulation. So getting noticed is not enough today. We have to earn the permission to be seen. And I think it's the most important today.
Yeah, you say that, it makes me think of Daniel Kahneman's work, right, when it comes to behavioral science. And for those who aren't familiar, Kahneman talked about this idea, he talked about many different things, but he talked about this idea of system 1 and system 2 thinking, right? So system 1 thinking, the fast processing of the brain, it's very reactive. So you think about someone saying, what's 4 plus 4? It's 8. It takes almost no time for you to do that. And if you were walking down the street and someone asked you what's 4 plus 4 without missing a beat, you'd be able to say 8 and keep walking. But then you shift to system 2, which is the more complicated, the more logical, the heavier lift, so to speak, that the brain's taking. So someone asks you, what's 17 times 34? Well, we could probably get there, but if you were walking and someone asked you that, you'd probably stop walking for a second. You maybe look in the sky and you'd kind of be trying to visualize the numbers in your head. Now your brain's shifting to system 2. And as brands, we typically try to keep people in system 1. We want to make this as easy as possible. We want to relieve that cognitive load on people. And because of that, sometimes we maybe oversimplify what we're trying to do, and we oversimplify the problem. So you may have heard people saying, you need to grab people's attention in the first 3 seconds. Like, that's all the time you've got. So I wonder, Grégory, what do you think about that common thought process around, we need to grab people in the first 3 seconds. That's all the time we have to get people's attention.
Yeah, the big mistake many marketers is believing that persuasion is the key lever for message. It's no longer the reality. Today is the attention. What's the point of having a brilliant message, strong benefits, if nobody can stop to see it, to look at? So keep in mind that in the 3 first seconds, our brain just not trying to deeply analyzing everything. It just we have just to try to increase the willingness to stop scrolling. That's the point. I like the willingness to. It's the, when I teach or when I'm with my clients, I always ask, what's the main objective for you? And they always say selling product or selling service. I'm not sure about that. For me, it's not that. It's not selling something. It's the willingness to. Willingness to pay more for your product than competitors, or willingness to waiting for the new products in order to buy a product for competitors. Anyway, that for me the main objective is the willingness to stop scrolling, and so it's really it's a big challenge. It's a huge challenge. I figured with a simple way, a simple image. Imagine you. People are running, and you ask your role is that they have to stop instantly. It's a physical effort. It's to stop instantly, and for the brand is the same. For the brand is really the same. For me, the attention is the most important. You have to capture the attention. It's a really huge effort for the brand, and you have to find a way to do that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that this session, this fireside chat that we're having isn't about cultivating the sale. It's about cultivating interest, right? It's just about getting that initial hook, right? First, you've got to get the person to stop scrolling. Then you've got them to get them to click. Then you've got to get them to understand the information is relevant, right? There's so many little kind of small wins that you have to make where you have to consistently hold their attention to get them all the way through that decision-making cycle. So you can really see how kind of sometimes we get a little bit too narrow-minded about it, right? And we focus on that first 3 seconds, and we don't think about what about the next 3 and the 3 after that. Abhay, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
I think I have the similar thoughts of what Grégory said. I think one of the practical ways I would say we have at least tried to do that is bring relevance on the table of how do you show them that this is for them technically in the first few seconds, but in the overall video as well, and that's very important. And how do you bring them in that story? How do you bring them that they are living that story? That's really important, and that just kind of talks about what you also said, right? It's not about we are trying to sell something. It's about we're trying to make them show a promise, like this is for you, and like keep watching, and it's gonna eventually come out to be true or whatever. So I think that's what I've tried to figure out. One of the interesting facts that I've seen, at least with my projects, is that whenever I've had like multiple broad hooks for like different videos, they haven't worked really well. But if I have done one specific hook for a specific niche audience, it has blown up. So I've seen like relevance is more about capturing attention or emotional sentiment of a specific audience as compared to trying multiple broad hooks and doesn't get the result.
I wonder, in your experience, of how if you had to boil it down, and I know this is tricky, this is a bit of a broad question, but if you had to boil it down, what are kind of the three big mistakes you see brands make in trying to kind of grab and cultivate that attention?
No, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes, as I said earlier as well. I think it's more about we have been trying to use AI for the content part of it as compared to figuring out the human sentiment part of it, of what we want to achieve from that video, what feeling we want to achieve from that video. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, that we are focusing more on the production rather than the pre-production part of it. I think another one would be, a lot of times it's similar to what I said, like we over-script, we over-analyze a lot of those things. Well, it could be really simple as, hey, this is for you. Like a lot of time this also works. So I think over-analyzing a lot of things and digging too deeper into it sometimes doesn't work. And lastly, which is interesting, is like a lot of time brands try one hook, they see a little bit of attention, and then they scale it across different platforms, while they haven't proven the message itself is if it's giving them the ROI that they're looking for. It may have been just a fluke and it worked for one platform, but it didn't work for others. So I think these are the three common mistakes I've seen brands do.
That makes sense. And I love your point about making sure that you're thinking about what works well for that audience, right? Really boiling down to that particular audience or audience segment. Of course, as marketers, we know the holy grail is kind of that one-to-one relationship, and hopefully we can get that one-to-one. But oftentimes that can be very challenging, very hard, especially to do at scale. But if we can at least get people into audience segments, audience groups, and speak intelligently to those segments and groups, we can often see, multiple X increase in engagement, in moving people down the funnel, because we're increasing relevancy to such a strong degree. So in thinking about that, what are kind of, and this question is for you, Grégory, what are kind of those key principles, those key takeaways in terms of what we should be doing? What's the framework that we can use to begin to grab attention as marketers?
First of all, you don't have to think about how can you make attention, how you create attention. First of all, you have to think about where and when. It's the most important, because you have to understand when and where the audience has the highest level of attention. You can have a brilliant message if it's not the right place and the right moment, it's not working. So it could be obvious because of course we have to know about the audience, the journey. But sometimes when you think it's obvious, you forget it. So yeah, I think the first moment is where and when.
Gotcha. When
you can keep the capture. And I think it's better now, right? I saw, yeah. The second is, you say that, Abhay, we have to create value. That is really important, the value. Sometimes I say to my team, fuck the algorithm and the social media. Fuck the algorithm. I prefer value, more value, more relevant, and less frequency or less repetition than the opposite. So yeah, we have to create value, and create value for for the audience is also, and you say that, it's also relevant to us. So it's create a sense of identification with the audience. We call that the self-brand connection, you know, the connection between the identity of the consumers and the image of the brand. It's important, and when you have a self-brand connection, you have attachment, you have connection, you have commitment, and you have attention. So yeah, it's the other one and the good one.
Definitely.
Maybe I'll have a third one, the emotion. I know that emotion for you is also important, but you know, emotion acts as an accelerator of attention and memorization. I'm not American. I was young, but I remember the 11th of September in 2001. It was the afternoon. I remember with who. I remember when. I remember when I get dressed, where I get dressed, and I think because the real connection between memorization and emotion, and it's the same for attention. When you have emotion, you trigger hormones, and it's like a shortcuts in your brain that create attention, memorization, behaviors before analyzing the situation. So emotion is really a good hook to create attention.
Definitely. And Abhay, please.
No, I think he definitely put out a lot of points. I think I have another point which is very interesting. I recently heard from the Instagram CEO, Adam. He said, especially in the world of AI being able to create a lot of different stuff, how do you stand out? So the way he put that perspective is like, it's not about can you create something, it's about can you create something only you can create. How do you bring that authenticity? And because I think in this world where a lot of AI polished stuff is out there, bringing a genuine original point of view is interesting and very scarce. I think that is something I think I've taken across, not just on Instagram, but like across creating content, written or like visual or whatever. So.
You know, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think one of the key takeaways that's really come across here for everyone, for us here and for the audience, is really the importance of who you're speaking to, because all the things that we've talked about, building value, having emotion, all those things become easier to do, differentiation, all those things become easier to do when you narrow your audience. Oftentimes we're trying to boil the ocean. You know, we want to sell to everyone. We want to sell to everything. But if we really think about the most successful brands, I've always believed they're both dearly loved and they're dearly hated. I mean, there are people who love Apple and will buy nothing else. There are people who detest Apple and will never buy an Apple product. And that's fine. Southwest Airlines. People love Southwest Airlines. People hate Southwest Airlines, and that's fine. Both those brands have come to the conclusion, we are not for everyone, so we are going to drive for the audience that we're speaking to, and for the other people, we're not worried about them. We're not trying to grab their attention, right? But because of that, both those brands are able to have a deeper emotional connection. Both those brands have an easier job communicating their value because they're not trying to communicate their value to, 8 billion people across the planet. They have a particular audience they're trying to communicate their value to. So, the points that you're both making really resonate with that, because it's easier to get that emotional hook, it's easier to communicate that value, it's easier to stand out as different when you're trying to do it to a particular group of people instead of trying to do it for everyone across the world. So I think that's really something to really take away from this. Let me ask you, Abhay, what other advice would you give as kind of marketers begin to continue to move forward, as things continue to evolve and change, the market is shifting, consumers are shifting? What other advice would you give in terms of making sure that we cultivate attention moving forward?
I think it boils down to what you just said. I think it's about figuring out who you are creating content for. That's really the bare bone structure of it. I think if you have not figured that out, whether that be, and I think also another piece is not just about creating a persona or something. It's about figuring out what are the sentiments that you want them to feel, what are the feelings, and how does that dial down to what are the relatability points that you can bring from your product or stuff. And lastly, I think that's more of a practical tip. I think I figured out AI is really good at creating the piece, and everybody knows that. And you can do that. You can trial and error, but you will get to a point where it's creating amazing content. It's more about how do you go before that, like pre-production. How do you figure out using AI the sentiments of it? How do you test those things faster? And I think that's where the AI can be used nicely, is how do you test those things faster before you even jump and kind of scale that across different platforms? I think these 2 points that I would put out.
I love that point. It's so important to continue to iterate, right? To recognize that because the market and because consumers are constantly in flux, that brands need to have a bit of a flywheel in place to keep them also moving, iterating and changing, experimenting and learning, so that they're constantly kind of able to move and twist and turn to make sure they're keeping up with the market and keeping up with those changes. But as we kind of mentioned toward the very beginning, these are still people we're dealing with. These are humans. I wonder if you could, maybe Grégory, kind of take us home with the human aspect of this in terms of what we're trying to do, again, from a mental aspect, in terms of trying to grab attention.
Yeah, I call that the five filter of mental attention. Is, the brain in just few seconds can just ask some question. Is the message for you? Or is the message for me? Do I gain something? Or do I feel something? Is it credible? And is it unique? So if the brain can ask these 5 questions, we have to ask us before you create the hook or the message, we have to ask himself or ourselves these 5 kind of questions and say respond to that for the message. And it's like an evaluation of your message, of your hook. But I would like to add something about what you say for the audience and the identification of the audience. For me, when we create companies, we create the companies for us. But when we create brands, we create a brand for them, for the audience. So that's why we have to speak not about the brand, but about what the brand brings to them. What about the brand can share values with them. So we have to know the audience for that also. And we can create connection and attention for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that really brings it home into the importance of all of this. Everything that we're doing, everything that we were talking about really at the conference, right, really comes down to the intelligence that's brought to the table in terms of understanding the consumer and meeting them where they're at, and allowing our understanding of the consumer to drive the things that we're doing to grab attention, right? Understanding them so we understand what are those emotional hooks, what brings them value, how can we stand out as different to them, what are we offering them that actually kind of meets their need, right? And that really starts with that research and that consumer intelligence that kind of feeds everything that we're doing. We push it back out to the marketplace, we learn from their reaction, and then we start that cycle over again. That's that same flywheel that we kind of talked about. I know we wanted to leave a little time for questions in case anyone had any questions, so we can do that now if anyone had any questions for any of us. Don't everyone raise your hand at once? If not, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here today. We appreciate it.